Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's Courageous Conversation. We will get started in 1 minute. We are just going to ensure that we are live on all the platforms we should be live on. And so I see we are good on Facebook. So hello to those who are watching us on Facebook. I'm going to ensure that we are also live on LinkedIn, and we will give everyone a minute or so to join. This is episode 4 of our Courageous Conversation series. So we are so excited to have a very special guest on today. I see that we are also live on LinkedIn, so that is great. We will get started shortly. For those who are tuning in, please be sure to let us know where you are joining in from. So please use the chat. Let us know where you're watching from, and we're going to get started in about 15 seconds. We want to allow everyone to join who is participating today. Awesome. I see some people tuning in on each of our platforms, so that is awesome. Today's special guest is going to be Stacy Gordon, and we are going to get started. So, hello everyone. My name is Antoinetta Mosley, and I'm the principal consultant at I Follow the Leader. This is episode 4 of our Courageous Conversation series, and today's topic is I Knew I Was Black When. So we are so excited to have Stacy A. Gordon on. I wanted to shout out her book, Unbiased. And so as you can see, I purchased it as a DEI practitioner. It is awesome. And I just want to shout out also what she put in the dedication, because it really is for everyone. The book is dedicated to people who have worked tirelessly to improve workplaces for all without the recognition of a formal title, without the benefit of resources, and with nothing but the knowledge and desire that things need to change. So go buy Stacy's book. I'm going to allow her to tell a little more about herself in a second. But this is really exciting because her book debuted at #1 on Amazon's hot new release list, which is so exciting. So Stacy, in her role as executive advisor and diversity strategist, coaches and counsels executive leaders on DEI strategies for the business while offering a no-nonsense approach to education for the broader employee population. And that is at Rework Work. So excited. I've been able to get to know Stacy. We're in a group together. So excited to be able to have you here and learn from her, because she is absolutely amazing. Go check out Rework Work and all of her great work. And do not forget to go buy this book that she recently published. So without further ado, welcome, Stacy. How are you doing today?
Thank you, Antoinetta. I am doing fabulous here on the West Coast. It's a kind of a gray morning, but I guess I'm doing better than a lot of the country that has snow, so I can't complain.
Yes, thank you. And is there anything else you want to share with us about the book or about the great work that you've been doing in this field for a long time?
Thank you. Yes. That book is a labor of love, and everyone asks, how long did it take you to write it? And I'm like, not that long, because it's all work. It's been information that's been in my head for so long. It's information that I share with executives, leaders when we're coaching. It's data that I'm talking about with talent acquisition teams and with HR strategists. So I was able to just pour it all into the book. And so I hope that you all have an opportunity to purchase a copy, to share a copy with leaders in your workplaces, join, book clubs and discuss it, because really what I want is for people to be able to make impact. It's about individual impact. It's not about waiting for the leaders around us to do the work for us.
Thank you, Stacy. And that's great and so important. And I appreciate you all showing where you're joining from. We have St. Pete, Florida, Durham, Seattle, Minneapolis. So we are so excited to have you all with us. And these courageous conversations, we also try to talk some about what is happening in the news. Obviously, there's a lot going on. And so we'll try to touch on that also if we have time left at the end of the call. I think it's really important that we as practitioners also talk about how we're doing. This can be heavy on us as well. So really important. And so we'll make sure at the end to touch on that. I really want to get started. For those who are new, this is episode 4, and we put courageous in quotes because our hope is that these conversations won't be courageous one day, that we'll be able to talk about diversity, equity, inclusion, racial equity, and belonging in our workplaces and communities without it being a courageous conversation. However, as we know, especially over the last year, as more people have been having these conversations, that it can be difficult for people to speak on these topics. And so today's topic and courageous conversation is I knew I was Black when. So a lot of people in underrepresented or underestimated groups have a time when they realize they may be treated differently because of an aspect. So Stacy, I would love for you to tell us what was that moment for you as a Black woman?
Well, for me, I think it was a literal moment, right? Because I mean, I probably had some understanding prior to this, but this is the one that sticks out the most in my head. And it's I don't know, I must have been like 7 or something. And I used to play with this neighbor across the street because we lived in this little cul-de-sac. It was a quiet neighborhood, and the I was like waiting for him to come out and play, and he didn't come out. And after about a half hour, I was like, oh, I guess he's not coming out. And then he finally comes out and he goes, I just came to tell you that I can't play with you anymore. My mom said I can't play with you anymore. And I was like, why not? He's like, because you're Black. And he went back in the house.
Right. So for him, it was just like, okay, this is matter of fact. My mom told me this. I'm done.
Right. And so I was like, oh, okay. But it was just like, it wasn't this huge thing, but it was just the way it just always stuck with me. And I think it stuck with me too, because that neighborhood that we lived in, I actually recently went back to London. So I was born in London. And so I went back to London just before COVID, and I actually went back to that neighborhood because not only did I have that kid tell me that, but because, like I said, we were in a little quiet community. It was a new development, and there was only one way in, really, from the school that I went to, and a couple times a week there would be this group of kids that would stand there and throw stuff at me as I walked home, and it always just kind of sat with me. So it's like to be able to go back in 2019 and kind of stand there and look at the neighborhood, it helped me to understand, like, my parents moved into a working class, blue collar, white neighborhood.
Yeah.
And I don't think they really understood what they were doing when they did that.
Yep.
So it was just interesting to be able to go back as an adult and be able to say, wow, this is what this looked like. And it doesn't seem as large and as overwhelming anymore as an adult, right? But as a kid, it's like,
Yeah, and we have a great question from Amanda in the chat, and feel free to ask questions, put your comments in the chat. And so she wanted to know, how did it make you feel? And then did you tell your parents when it happened?
I did not tell my parents. I did not, because you just kind of knew, like, what are they going to do about it? We're going to move,
Right.
like, there's not really all that they could do about it. So I mean, maybe they could have, right? But that's the thing about being a kid, is you make all these assumptions about things.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. Yeah, in our first episode, I talked about an experience, and I was on the bus in my neighborhood, suburban neighborhood. We were one of the only Black families, and I was called the N-word on the bus. And kind of ran home, told my dad, and he actually went to talk to the family, and the boy was suspended. but right, in the long scheme of things, right, like you said, you're likely not going to move over these issues. These issues are going to happen all the time, and so it's like, how do you process that? I'm not sure if you have children, but what do you advise? How has this experience taught you, if you have kids, or have children that are just in your life? What would you advise them? Do you have some of these conversations with them?
Oh, we do all the time. I mean, because again, I live in a neighborhood that, is predominantly, it's probably a lot of Asian and white, right? So there's not
Yeah.
that many Black families. It's actually changed over time. We've lived in this neighborhood for about 15 years now. But I had to tell my girls, my two oldest, because they're only 18 months apart. And so they would walk to school together. And I had to explain to them that you stand out in the neighborhood. Like, people know you, they see you, they know where you live, they watch you walk out the gate in the morning. Like, you can't mess up in the neighborhood because people know where you live. They know who you are. You're not just
Yeah.
some random kid that, blends in with the crowd. And I gave them the example. I said, I went into the pizza place, Domino's Pizza around the corner, and the manager said to me one day, he goes, "Oh, I see your girls every day walking home."
Mm,
How do you know they're my girls? Well, you know how you know
right.
they're my girls? Because I'm Black and they're Black. So you make the assumption that they must be
That they're
mine, right?
your
They must
kids.
belong to me.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, and
I
I
said
think
to them,
that's
like,
so important for those who are watching who may not be Black. These are the conversations parents often have with you, whether it's at school or in the community. Like, people are going to know you because of your skin color, and make some of those assumptions. So I would love for you to share. Obviously, you have this book out about unconscious bias. What can people do? What can people, if they haven't experienced this, can you give some tips for how to have some of these conversations with their children, and just also what others can do in the workplace if they haven't experienced some of these biases, that often Black people do from a young age?
right. Well, and I think it's a spectrum, right? So we can't lump everything into one type of experience. Like, we're talking spectrum from minor microaggressions all the way up to actual discriminatory, prejudiced behavior, and in some cases, assault, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and I'll use the example, a recent example. I don't remember the names, but if you Google, like, there was a little girl biracial girl who had her hair cut by a teacher. Just happened just a couple days ago. I'm spitting mad about it, right? Like,
Oof.
whew, even as I talk about it, I'm so angry for this family. And when you think about that, you think, well, is that a microaggression? Is it an actual assault, right? Like, can the family go to the police? Like, this, to me, she was assaulted. That is an
Yeah.
actual assault. It is a crime, right? But these are the things that we have to deal with. And you first have to ask yourself this, like, well, is it a crime? Is it something that I can report to HR? Is it just
Right.
something that I have to get over? Like, what level of harm am I dealing with right now? And so first you have to even categorize that. And that alone is frustrating, to have to
Yeah.
sit and kind of figure these things out, because you should just be able to get up every day, walk to school, and not be accosted. You should be able to send your child to school and know that they're going to come home in the same condition that you set them in, and they're not going to come home with hair missing, right? Like,
Yeah.
these are things that you should be able to assume will be fine, but you can't. And if you look at, I saw that post that was going around about all the things that Black people can't do, right? Like, you can't
Right.
go to the store, you can't buy cigarettes, you can't walk to the grocery store, you can't. These are all things that people take for granted. These are all things we literally have to think twice about before we leave our house in the morning. Like,
Yes.
the police are supposed to be there to help you, and you have to think, yeah, I've just been robbed, but will I be more harmed if I call the police, or should I just let it go? Right? Like, these are things we
Yeah.
shouldn't have to think about.
No, and it's so real, and we have to have these conversations because, again, I really have to stress, it doesn't matter if someone's educated, what their background is, what their profession is. Most people of color in the United States are scared when we see a police car approaching. Most people tense up, get nervous. I can say that for myself. I can be not speeding. And I get that anxiety because of not only what I've seen in the media, but what I've seen as a child when my dad got pulled over in Georgia, when we couldn't stop in certain counties out of fear of what would happen if you got pulled over. And so I know we're coming up on time, but would love to ask you if you have any additional thoughts you want to share about that moment in your life. But also just want to see how you're doing. Obviously, we had the verdict yesterday with George Floyd, and the country's reacting to that. So would love to know, just how you're feeling.
Yeah, I mean, I have to quote. So I have a friend, Cicely Wilson Fleming. She's on Facebook. I love her. She's in Chicago, and she is an alderman. And she, if you Google her, you'll see that she's been talking about reparations, right? That they're Evanston, city of Evanston, we're talking about actually providing reparations, and she tried to block it because she was like, this is actually not reparations if you really look a little bit deeper, right?
Mm.
So the idea that I want to quote her because she said, please do not congratulate Black people if the verdict fits the crime, right?
Mm.
And I think we have to understand, like, I think people are wondering, well, why aren't Black people happy? Because that's what's supposed to happen.
Yeah.
He committed a crime. The verdict fit the crime. That is what's supposed to happen. We're not jumping for joy because it finally happened. It's supposed to happen every single time. And we shouldn't have to hope and pray and hold our breath, right? That it will happen. It should just automatically happen, and it shouldn't be something that we have to question. So the fact that it happened one time, wonderful. Okay, great. Justice happened in this one instance, right?
Yeah.
So do not look to Black people to be grateful, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because this is something that should have happened. It shouldn't even have been a question. It shouldn't have been something that we have to have a whole conversation about and have to be stopping news, shows and news programs about and wondering if we're going to riot and things like that, because this should have just been happening. It should be standard. And the fact that it's not, that tells you everything that you need to know about the state of America.
Yeah, it does, right? That there's a relief. And that's what a lot of people said. The fact that we were on pins and needles, even though this video and the testimonies and everyone saw this, right? Last May, we saw this, we knew what it was. But to have to be on pins and needles as a race, it is just ridiculous. It is, but just the fear, will this happen? Will this justice be served? And I think what a lot of people are saying is there's so much more to be done, right? So, there's this relief that this was done, but we have so many more cases this year to be in court. And then obviously the fight to end these systemic injustices where this is happening at all. So
right. Well,
I really appreciate you. People are saying thank you in the comments. They're so appreciative of you for opening up and sharing your story. So I wrote some of the things I wrote down is, that you stand out, right? So having to tell your daughters, you have to behave a certain way because you stand out. And then also to have to consider what level of harm. So to be a victim and then have to categorize the harm that is done. These are things for us to think about. Again, please go get Stacey's book. It is great. And I just want to end by, Stacey, if you have any closing thoughts for us, would love to end with your thoughts.
I just want to say, like I said, that first of all, yes, please buy the book. You can go to unbiasedbook.com. I would love if you connect with me on Instagram. I'm at Diversity Diva and also Rework Work. You can connect with me on LinkedIn. And I just want to say thank you, Antoinetta, for starting this conversation. And we definitely need to have more of them. And really, it's all about awareness, right? Which is one of the phases of the framework of my book, because it's we have to start with awareness. There's a lot of people out there that we are making assumptions that they know, and we're realizing now they don't. So part of this is educating. We do have to do it.
Yes. Well, thank you so much, Stacy. We know you are busy. We love what you're doing. We're going to continue to watch out for you. You guys have to go follow Stacy on LinkedIn. She has great posts. She has great content. So thank you so much for coming on today and sharing your story. We really appreciate it. Thank you,
Thank you.
Stacy. Thank you everyone for watching. Please go follow I Follow the Leader. We are having courageous conversations on Wednesdays at 12 p.m. Eastern Time. Would love to have you join us. And if you have a conversation you would like to have, a story you would like to share, you can go to ifollowtheleader.com/courageous and fill out a form. We would love to talk to you. We are having conversations with people in many diverse groups and just having these conversations. As Stacy shared, awareness and education is so important. Thank you, everyone. We hope that you have